with Chris Buescher, the driver of the JTG Daugherty number 37. Hey, Chris, come on up. And we'll look for the first question for our friend who we used to get to see on Tuesday nights running his Legends car here. Oh, who's first? I think we got some hands coming up. Way back, Tom Jensen in the back there.
It's a shy crowd.
Well, they're all kind of returning from grabbing something to eat. Some of them we caught in mid-bite. What's up, Tom?
Hey, Chris, Tom Jensen, FoxSports.com. Can you clarify what your situation is with JTG and Roush, and are you still under contract with Roush to go back there next year?
Yeah, we're still under contract with Roush, but for this year and coming over to JTG, we're full tilt ahead. So working on this season, getting integrated with everybody over there. It has been a transition, coming over to a new team for the second year in a row, trying to get to know everybody. And we got a new crew chief with Trent Owens, getting used to that. New manufacturer with Chevrolet. Really focused on getting through this year. Right now that's the plans we have. We haven't looked anywhere past that. So 2017 is looking to be a great year, though. Looking at the momentum that AJ and the 47 team had at the second half of last year is very promising and makes us very optimistic to get rolling at Daytona and especially past that once we get to Atlanta and that West Coast swing.
Next question.
David Scott with the Charlotte Observer. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
With Dale Jr.'s concussion last year, how did that change how you view that kind of injury? And do you feel like you're doing anything different now in terms of your equipment or whatever to prevent that?
It definitely makes us pay attention. As far as drivers and safety equipment and where we've been there. We've been using the best safety equipment available to us for many years, and we realize it, but the cars continue to evolve. There have been some safety updates for the chassis for this season that'll slowly become a part of every racetrack we go to. I think right now it's super speedway only, but there's just always evolving safety-wise. Always try and be mindful of it. We do our impact concussion testing before the season. We got to get all that turned in, and that's every 2 years. I mean, we have all kinds of baselines. We have protocols that we go through to make sure that we know where we're at, and we try and make sure that after any incident we're able to go through any tests to make sure that we're still cleared to race.
Next question. Straight ahead.
Dale McFadden with NBC Sports. Chris, how well do you know AJ Allmendinger going into this season? What's your relationship been like as you get integrated with each other? And when you have a teammate, what are the qualities you look for in a good teammate?
I knew AJ a little bit more than a lot of the other drivers. And then as we went through the off season, what little bit off season there is, we had a couple of events. We had a Christmas party over at JTG. Had some sponsor summit stuff and gotten to know AJ pretty well. Very outgoing, which I could definitely take a few hints from there. He very wide open, got a lot of energy. So I think it's gonna be really good. And we all know AJ is probably the best road racer in the garage area. He's excellent when it comes to that. And like I said, the second half of last season, that the whole group over at JTG showed extreme promise speed-wise, and he ran really well at all the racetracks they went to. He's very good at Martinsville, very good at Richmond's, and a lot of these other racetracks that I haven't been as good as I'd like to be at. He's also runs very, very well at Bristol, which I feel like was probably our best track last year as well. So there's a lot of good things that I think are going to work to help us both work together. It's always nice to have a teammate and have a whole nother team to bounce ideas off of. I think overall for our team, going from one team to two is going to be beneficial. The alliance with RCR over there is already like having a bunch of teammates. It's just a little bit different when it's all under the same roof 24/7, and everything is completely openly talked about all the time.
Another question for Chris. You come to this team as somebody that won, made the playoffs last year, even though they weren't called that last year. But, do you start getting some of these new crew members that are assembling to work on your race car, looking and asking you now as the veteran and such? And what is that difference like, being the person that is being asked questions as you go into the season rather than, the other way around? I
don't know about a veteran, but I'm getting old compared to some of these kids coming in. So, there's and still I'm very new to this. One solid season in. So, the people that we have hired on over at JTG, I've gotten to meet our team. Just going through right now the basics of getting seats mounted. Everything set inside the car to where we're comfortable and able to go to the racetrack as safe as possible. And, a handful of them I know from Roush, actually coming over from there. A lot of them coming in from different race teams and just new guys that I haven't worked with, but so far I've really liked everybody that's come on board. They're all working together really well. I feel like we have a really good group behind us, and I think it's going to turn out to be a great season.
Stan Creekmore.
At Stan Creekmore, outside the box. Chris, what is the biggest thing about yourself you believed you learned last year that should be a big benefit for you this year?
Before the changes in the format, I thought I did a pretty good job at learning about when to be patient, when not to be, and when it was important, and when it wasn't. And now I don't think we get to exercise patience ever. So I don't know that it's going to help me a whole lot. But on the other side of that, there's still a lot of similarities. And with the format and the new changes that have just been announced, it's not going to change a whole lot from our perspective. We're always out there going hard. There was just times in the race where you didn't feel like you had to be in a certain position by the end of a segment, so that you were able to say, okay, it's not perfect right now, we can wait it out. Whereas now I feel like we're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive there. So, for me, what I learned has been changed now. With the style or with the format that we have. But I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good overall. I'm excited to try it out, and I think it addressed a couple of key issues that a lot of people wanted to see adjusted.
Jordan
Bianchi, SB Nation. Wondering if you had a much of a relationship with Jimmy Johnson, if he's offered any guidance along the way, what kind of rapport you guys have had?
I don't know him really well, but I guess for the last 2 years, I've gotten to go out to Vegas as part of, as all the Chase drivers have gone out there. 2 years ago was just from being the Xfinity champion, so myself and Brett Moffitt being Rookie of the Year were out there and just got to be around all of it and kind of see how it all unfolded. And then obviously last year with making the Chase and not just Jimmy, but all of those guys, the entire group of drivers that we're out there with was extremely friendly. Offered up a lot of advice just to try and basically prepare you for what I'm getting myself into. What all of our younger drivers are getting ourselves into, and how this is a different lifestyle, I guess, from Saturday night short track racing. There's a lot more effort that goes into it, a lot more preparation, and a lot more days like this where you got to speak and be presentable on behalf of all the sponsors that go along with it and all the partners. And it's there's a lot to it, and all those drivers that have been doing it a long time offer up every bit of advice they can to try and make sure that we're prepared for it and that we present ourselves the right way.
Got time for one more for Chris. I'm going to keep you on a pretty good tight schedule and let you get to the next place maybe about 45 seconds ahead, but certainly appreciate your time.
You got it. I
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Chris Buescher.
See y'all at Daytona. That's it, Chris. Thank you.
31, Ryan Newman. And as soon as he kind of gets sat down, we'll hand him the microphone. He's got a nice ice-cold Coca-Cola in hand. First question for Ryan Newman.
Perfect.
Yeah. Holly's got one for you.
HollyKaneNASCAR.com. Could you address the changes to the championship this year and how you see that kind of playing out? And are you excited to be able to score the points in the middle of the race as well? And do you see this kind of changing the way everything looks towards the end of the year?
I'm trying to think of a unique answer because I'm sure you've had that question a couple times in this room today. But I think that the strategy of the races, the mixture of importance on a bonus point for a stage win in reference to how you race each stage and the last stage, which ultimately is still the most important, points-wise, is going to be unique and fun to follow. It is going to be a challenge, I think, to learn the system, but I don't think it's a complex system, and I think that with the right technology, it can be very easily adaptable to the fans, which to me is extremely important. And I think that the most important thing that we'll talk about with this new structure will be the 1 point that goes into the chase per stage, and still the bonus structure that goes and is now cumulative throughout the chase, because ultimately we're all racing for wins, but the big trophy is always going to be that championship.
Next question, Bob Pockris.
Bob Hockers, ESPN. Has the wind drought at RCR taken any sort of a kind of life of its own in the sense of, is there a feeling like, oh my gosh, if we just get a win, everything will then kind of fall into place?
Yeah, I think we've been close and had that taste. Obviously, back in 2014 was the closest I was, but Austin had some really good races last year. Paul has had some good. But I think that it has been a challenge, and it is tough to work through that mental part of it. But we know that we have the right people, we know we have the right parts, and we have to put it all together. We've had some meetings already this year about what we can do to work on that. It's at the forefront of our thought process of getting that first victory of the season for the organization, as well as ending that drought. So. It's especially with the new format, it'd be awesome to talk about that, and a double bonus for us.
Lewis.
Louis Frank of Reuters, over to your left. Have you found the hissing cockroaches you attempted to show me at the rescue ranch, or do I need to call an exterminator?
No, I sent them all up to New York. We mailed them. No, I have not seen exactly where they are, but a very good question. And I was there 2 days ago, and I honestly didn't remember seeing where the cage was. I think she had to move them. I think the last time she said something to me that they had multiplied, and they had to address the situation.
Hill Overton.
In Charlotte, no, you're safe. Yeah, especially with your experience in the past, you're safe.
Hey, Ryan, Hill Overton, WIXC Radio. This time last year, you told us that NASCAR had not taken enough downforce out of the cars. Now with the lower spoiler yet this year, do you think maybe they're there as to where you think it ought to be downforce-wise?
I think it's kind of a loaded question that you've asked, because they have taken downforce out, and they hadn't taken enough downforce out, and we've taken more downforce out. But I can't put a number on how much downforce we gain back each year, because I know that does happen. The number typically is half. And from what I've been told, it's 300 pounds less this year than last year. But we're going to gain some of that back. And the biggest difference that needs to be talked about is the tire combination. And that's kind of a moving target because of the number of racetracks that we've had that have been repaved. You can't just throw a super soft tire and expect a lot of fall off on brand new asphalt. So the biggest challenge in my eyes lays on Goodyear's shoulders, or the combination of Goodyear and NASCAR, to put something out there that does what we want it to do, that kind of matches the old school style of racing of a tire that falls off 2 or 3 seconds over a run, not we stay out and wait till the fuel burns off and run our quickest lap on old tires, which are still brand new. So there's a balance there, which I think is more biased to the tire racetrack combination than it is the actual downforce number that we have now. I do think that they have made an advantage to us with the new aero package, and the fact that it moves the downforce balance slightly back, which is important to have, to me, more grip on the tires that make the car go forward than it is to have more grip on the tires that make the car turn.
Stan Creekmore. Straight ahead.
Hey, Ryan, Stan Creekmore with Outside the Box. Something we really haven't talked to yet this year. Texas is doing a complete repave, and they're changing the banking in turn 1 and 2. What do you think the biggest obstacles will be when you all go to Texas?
Basically the exact same answer I just had, having a tire combination that meets that surface and a surface that is prepared to the best of our ability so that it makes it good racing from the very beginning. I think we've had good experiences with that. I think we've had bad experiences with that. For instance, Phoenix, when it was freshly repaved, they used the what was it called? I call it the tire machine. They use a different terminology, but it lays the rubber in the corners and kind of cleans the racetrack up and gets it a little racier to start. It kind of gets the track aged a little bit, so to speak. Then you go to a track like Michigan, and as a 2-mile racetrack, we put a lot of effort into getting the track rubbered up, and it just never worked. The second race at Michigan is guaranteed to always be a better race since we've had the repave, because that rubber stays on that racetrack from June to August, and you're not going to get that opportunity at Texas, as we're not going to lay enough rubber until the end of the weekend to see exactly what we have, whether it's a track surface change or a track layout change, to make a difference in the racing.
Adam Fenwick.
Adam Fenwick with Speed Sport Magazine. Ryan, traditionally you run a couple of NASCAR modified races every year. Can we expect the same from you this year? And are you going to talk Tony into jumping into the car this year maybe?
I actually had placed a phone call this morning to talk about that, and never got my call answer. We've been playing phone tag, so I would like to. I would like to do a heck of a lot better than I've done the last couple of years, because for the longest time it was a whole lot of fun, and the last couple of years it hasn't been quite as much fun. So I would definitely like to, as long as I can have fun. And I don't really care what Tony does. He can work his own schedule.
There we go.
Al Stilley, Trackside Report, Indianapolis. We've seen a retirement from Cup of Tony, Jeff, and Carl Edwards out of the Midwest. There aren't any drivers coming through the Midwest, it seems like, to replace them. What has kind of led to that demise?
Eric Jones is from Michigan. That's still a Midwest to me, right? Well, that's 1 out of 3. That's of the 3 rookies, one's from the Midwest. What about the West Coast? Should we worry about them? No, I mean, I think it's important that we get good diversity in our sport from different forms of racing. I've always said, and I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but it doesn't matter to me if it's a male or female or what country they come from, as long as they're good drivers and can drive the race cars and put on a good show. And geographically, if that comes from the Midwest and they're open wheel cars, if it comes from the Southeast and they're late model drivers, it doesn't matter to me. I want to go to the racetrack as a driver or as a spectator, knowing that I'm beating and competing against the best drivers that are out there in the world that want to race stock cars. That's what's important to me.
About the last question time, so who wants to throw one more out for Ryan?
I must have answered that one okay, because
You did okay.
follows up.
Yeah. We're running about 45 seconds ahead these last couple, so you may
I'd
get a 45-second bump here.
if you want me to.
How about Rescue Ranch? You know, that's a big commitment you and your wife have made on a subject that is non-racing, but you're able to do an awful lot of good.
Well, I mean, yes, it is non-racing, but without racing, we probably wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So Rescue Ranch, for those of you that don't know, is our 501c3, and as Lewis mentioned, it does have a few cockroaches, whether they're planned or not. We educate. Lewis came up for a quick little visit one day, but we educate kids about animals, and the ultimate goal is to teach the kids through education how to be responsible pet owners or responsible to animals in general. So we teach about agricultural animals, domestic animals, and wild animals, and we as humans what we can do to control either the overpopulation or be responsible pet owners. So we have functions with local schools and school trips and field trips, and my wife Chrissy, who runs pretty much everything and has a staff of about 7 people. They have as many as 90 to 100 kids there a day at times, not every day of the week, but at times, and have planned events for them. So it could be something as simple as, arts and crafts that they learn about animals. It could be hands-on experience with a rabbit, different snakes and reptiles that we have. We have agricultural animals like cows and miniature horses and goats and a couple turkeys, chickens, things like that. So we try to teach a little bit about everything about animals in general to kids. And hopefully the goal is that those kids will go back and teach their parents and kind of play catch up on the few generations that we've had of people that kind of forget about some of the great outdoors.
Very good work, and we'll look forward to a good season.
Yeah, rescueranch.com is the website, and it's open to the public, and we prefer to have people to come under with a visitation tours and things like that instead of having a big influx of people. But it is open for anybody that's interested in coming.
Awesome. Well, your tour's got to continue. They told us to keep everybody on 10 minutes, so
I tried to
you're
keep
clear.
that one around 45 seconds.
Yeah, you did well. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Ryan Newman, driver of the number 6 from Roush Fenway, Trevor Bayne. Hey, bud, good to see you again.
Thanks, sir.
Nice to have you with us. First question for Trevor Bayne.
Don't everybody get up at one time now, okay? I know you're getting tired, but hope you're having a good day.
There we go.
Jessica Ruffin with NASCAR.com. You guys have had a lot of changes in the offseason, moving to a 2-car team this year, and along with some personnel changes. How do you feel like that will help you performance-wise in terms of being able to focus your efforts just on these 2 teams?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this this change at Roush Fenway Racing. But first of all, Greg Biffle has been a great teammate for myself and for Ricky and for the Roush Fenway organization. He's brought a lot of wins and a lot of success to Jack. So I want to thank him for everything he's done for us before this year. But moving into 2017, I think what it's going to do for our race team is just make us more nimble and able to react faster. As we all know, NASCAR is changing every weekend, every day. If you're not making changes on your race cars, you're not keeping up with the competition. And, it's very easy in the offseason to implement all your changes. But as the season goes on and the larger you are, the harder it is to get all those changes into your race cars quickly. So I think this will take us from, being a month or 6 weeks out of, finding some speed and actually getting it in all the race cars to a couple weeks. And that's big for us. As you find things, you need to have them in your race car. So I look forward to that. I also look forward to, Ricky and I, we've been friends since 2010, I believe, when I was at Diamond Waltrip Racing and he was at Roush Fenway. And then I came to Roush Fenway and we were still really close friends. But later that year, we kind of started this Ricky versus Trevor campaign. And it was always, who's doing the best? Is it Ricky? Is it Trevor? We were always on this kind of totem pole. Who's the best at Roush Fenway? But I think Ricky and I have kind of realized in the last couple of years of being teammates at the Cup level that it's not Ricky versus Trevor anymore. It's Roush Fenway Racing versus everybody else. And we've come alongside each other as teammates and really are going to push each other this season. I mean, I feel like we started doing that last season and we saw some result from it, but we're going to learn from each other. We're going to be humble through it and understand that you can learn from each other. And we're going to push our team. I think that's our role as drivers, is to get in there, motivate our guys, and to finish the season as strong as we start.
Bob Pockris has a question.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Do you feel like you can build on last season, or did you feel like the way the season went that they kind of lost momentum there?
I think we can learn a lot from last season. In sports, we're quick to look at our last performances as our evaluation of a whole season. And last year, I think we kind of shocked ourselves and everyone else when we came to Atlanta and got our car to qualify third, ran well. There were a lot of times early in the season we were making it to the final round of qualifying. I remember Jamie Little would do an interview with ESPN, or with, she would come by and do an interview, and we would talk about it, and I'd qualify good, and she'd laugh and be like, oh, I got to interview you next week, and she'd come interview me, and I'd make it to the final round again, and we'd crack up about it. But that performance early in the year was something that shocked us a little bit. As the season went on, I feel like we did not keep up the way that we wanted to. So what we have to learn is, how do you, I touched on it a second ago, how do you stay as motivated and make the gains from Michigan to Homestead that you make in the off season that you show up to Atlanta and Daytona with. So that's what we have to do as a team. We have to stay motivated. I think the guys are motivated, but we have to continue to communicate better. You've heard this a lot at Roush Fenway Racing in particular, is a culture shift and a communication shift. And I think that's taking place. You don't have a culture shift by replacing one or two people or by, hiring new personnel. The culture shift has to be ingrained into every single person in the organization. And I think we're getting closer and closer to being to that point where everybody believes that we can do it at Roush Fenway Racing. Everybody's on board. Everybody's willing to work the hours. Everybody's willing to, endure the hard days because it's easy to get pumped up to go to Daytona. I'm sure everybody you've talked to in here today has said how excited they are and how pumped up they are to go racing. But it's those summer months that we get to when you really find out what you're made out of and what you can accomplish throughout the rest of the season. So I'm looking forward to that this year. I'm looking forward to learning from last year. And again, I'm really pumped up about the guys I have surrounding me and just their mentality right now because they're willing to do what it takes to win races and to get us back.
As a Knoxville driver, you've got one of your home state newspapers that would like to ask you a question.
Yeah, Trevor, you were talking about Daytona. Obviously, last time you went down there, you had the third place finish and really seemed to be strong under a stricter place. Just how excited are you to get to that race?
Well, Daytona is always that bittersweet double-edged sword. It can go and you can win the race, or you can wreck out on lap one after a rain delay. I've done both of those, but we do know that Daytona is a great opportunity for us to go and win a race. And I'm sure, again, all the other drivers think the same thing. But what I believe in is, the program that Jimmy Finnig has kind of built in our super speedway cars. That process of him being there and overseeing every car that goes to the racetrack at super speedways has shown to have performance. Greg Biffle was on a pole last year. We almost made the final round at all the races. I think we qualified 13th in almost all of them, and maybe one we qualified 11th or 12th. So we were right on the cusp of that. Ricky Stenhouse had performance in his race cars. They showed up on the racetrack fast. We finished third at Talladega, as you mentioned, and ran well at Daytona. And, I think performance does matter at those races. When you're going to pull out a line and make a run, you got to have some speed in your car. So we have that. But what it ultimately comes down to is making the right decisions throughout the race to put yourself in the best opportunity. And I hope to do that. I hope that, Matt Pusha and myself can be on the same strategy. Roman Pemberton, he'll be on the same strategy as us, and just as a team, we'll be firing right when we get to Daytona. Last year at Daytona, I had a lot of unknowns. I showed up with a new crew chief, a completely new team, hadn't worked with any of my guys before, and I feel like we started out pretty strong, but we've learned a lot about each other. We've learned a lot about our weaknesses and where we fail each other at, and we're going to build on that to get better.
Question way in the back there to the right.
Keith McFarland Review. Trevor, if looking at the sport as a whole, and of your experience in interacting with the various stakeholders, from the fans on up, what would be like a change or two that you think would be ideal for the sport and probably would be readily acceptable?
And that's a very hard question. I wish I had all the answers. I think about it all the time. As drivers, we sit there, as Carl Edwards said, we wake up thinking about it, we go to lunch thinking about it, we go to sleep thinking about it, and we dream about it. But, I don't have all the answers to that question. I think that they're pursuing that, though. I don't mean to give you a political answer, but with the format changes that we're going to, I think NASCAR is pursuing that, and that comes from a culmination of the stakeholders, as you mentioned. That comes from the drivers, the fans, the track owners and presidents. And, I think that ultimately what we want at the end of the day is the best racing possible, right? So we want everybody to be motivated. We want them to drive hard. We want the crews to make risky calls, and we want the cars to be able to run close to each other. So, I wish I could tell you how to make the cars run closer together. Obviously, when we can accomplish that, you're going to see the best racing possible, but there are a lot of engineers smarter than I am figuring that one out. As far as the new format changes, though, the benefit I think you're going to see there, as a driver, I can't push any harder, right? I race every single lap at 100%. A lot of drivers would tell you I probably go over that edge sometimes and make them mad, but, we cannot push our cars to race any harder to win a stage. But what you will see, and what it will culminate is strategy changes. Our crew chiefs are going to be trying to do things throughout the race to make it more interesting to get the most points possible. If I win 2 stages and finish 20th, I'm going to get as many points as almost the guy that finishes second. So obviously wins, especially stage 3, are invaluable. But for us, it creates an opportunity to strategize, to mix it up, and really be risky. The guy that runs 15th all day and just executes well is not going to be rewarded as much as a guy who takes chances and gets those stage wins. And obviously the end of the race is always what we're shooting for. But so I look forward to that. I think, maybe Daytona and Talladega, you could maybe turn up the aggression a little bit, maybe not the intensity, but you could try some things at stage 1, stage 2 that you normally would say it's way too early for that. So it may change the intensity there a little bit. But ultimately, we want to put on the best race we can for our fans, and I can promise you all 40 of us are driving our guts out. And now I think, beyond just winning the race, our crew chiefs will have something else to work towards.
Mike Hembry has a question for you. That'll be our last question.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. It's been quite a number of years since Ford won the Drivers' Championship. Is it going to take a collaborative effort of all the Ford teams to make that happen, or can one team kind of catch fire and win it?
Well, I really hope that Roush Fenway Racing can always be the team to bring the trophies home for Ford, but in reality, it's going to take an effort of everybody being together, right? The more you can combine your resources, the better off you're going to be. And, I don't know exactly what that relationship's going to look like yet. We haven't been to the racetrack yet with Stuart Haas as a Ford team. We've obviously had a good partnership with Penske, but it's not like we're going to go sit down in our meetings and they're going to lay out their chassis blueprints or their aero sheets. And, I definitely hope that Ford will kind of put their stake in it a little bit and say, all right, guys, we got to work together. And we hope for that at Roush Fenway Racing, because I feel like we're kind of an open book. So I would challenge the other teams to be willing to work together. But, I think as far as an owner's championship or a manufacturer's championship, it always takes every team that you've got, and that's obviously what Ford wants to do. They want to hedge their bets a little bit, and they felt like Stuart Haas was a great team to partner with to do that. And Ford does a really good job with their drivers of bringing us together for events, trying to get us to have conversation. And we may not share data sheets, but we can have conversation to help each other along. And it's that one little thing that you hear in a meeting that really could send your team the right direction. So I look forward to working with those guys, getting to know them better, and I look forward to seeing what we can accomplish this year.
Remember that you don't want to keep the Ricky and Trevor thing going, right? Well, he's up next. We got to get him up here.
Sounds good. Come on, Ricky.
Trevor Bayne, thank you.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you, sir. Awesome. And perfectly attired. They've been wearing you out already today, but this will be a fast 10 minutes. Who's got the first question for Ricky? Looks like Greg does.
Hey, Ricky, Greg Engel, CupScene.com. I know, the sponsor side, you don't deal a lot other than standing there and wearing what they tell you to wear and smile and all, but does it seem from your aspect that sponsorships are becoming easier to come by, and do you have your season filled out? Is that market kind of loosening up? I know that's
easier to come by.
I'm just asking.
I think for any team it's getting harder to come by. I think as drivers, I think it's easier this day and age to build personal relationships with the sponsors, and all of our partners on the 17 team. I've got great relationships with off the racetrack, and obviously we want to do a better job for them on the racetrack, but we do a ton as drivers off the racetrack to make their sponsorship worth it of our race team. And so I definitely would say I don't know one team that would say it was getting easier to come by, but it's a lot of hard work put into it. I'm flying up to Fastenal tomorrow morning and there for a couple days, and do the same thing with all our other partners. So it's a lot of work put in off the racetrack, but it's just something that you got to do.
Got 1, 2 here. We'll get to Bob. They're ready for you. We'll get our people running. There you go. You're up.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Ricky, I don't know if you've been to the shop much or anything during the off season, but have you noticed any difference with Roush Fenway Racing scaling back to 2 teams from 3?
I've been at the shop a lot, with the guys, and obviously having a new crew chief with Brian Patty, and moving some of my key staples on the 17 team off the 17 team to run some key departments in our shop. I've seen a big benefit already in that. Mike Kelly's doing a great job at going to the wind tunnel, making sure he's finding the downforce that we're needing to find. Nick is doing a great job on the engineering side. We have a Monday or a meeting every morning at 7:30 that every department runs over a list of things that they need done that day, and if it doesn't get done that day, it's brought up at the next meeting the next morning, and it's been pretty beneficial. I think the benefits. I'm excited that I've seen progress being made in communication at our shop, and everybody seems really motivated to get Jack and our partners back to running better, running up front. We don't show up to the racetrack not to do that. They've put a lot of hard work into it, and we're trying to make up a lot of ground that we've lost over the last couple of years. And so, I don't think 2 cars right now has really made a whole lot of difference, but I think as we go throughout the season, when Mike and the guys find aero advantages at the wind tunnel, getting that stuff implemented into our race cars is going to be a little bit easier, only doing it for 2 cars versus 3. But then again, on the weekend, you don't learn as much either. So, it goes hand in hand, but, I think I've been encouraged of what I've seen at the race shop this offseason.
Louis Frank of Reuters. With Greg Biffle gone, so who's the old guy on the team? I didn't want to ask who's number one, but you or Trevor. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the old guy. I've been at Roush Fenway the longest now, so I really never thought that would happen. Obviously we had Matt, Carl, and Greg there, and they'd been there for a long time. So I signed with Roush in 2007 now, so it's been a while. It's been a journey that that I've enjoyed, a new chapter for me now to kind of take the reins and make sure we lead the buggy in the right direction. And I feel good about that. And Trevor along with me is, we're going to have to make sure that when we come back from the weekend, we're going to have to make sure that we let them know what direction we need to go to make our cars better and better every week. And I think we started last season fairly strong, and we fell off, and that was something that we weren't able to maintain, and that's something that we got down in our notes for this year's. We got to maintain and continue to get better every week.
Bob Pockris.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Does this new points format put any additional pressure to turn things around quicker than maybe the previous format?
Not for me. I think for me the new format doesn't really change, and heck, I've been in a few of my coach Freeze's pregame locker room speeches. I feel like he always says the orders remain the same. For us, I feel like the orders are the same for me and my race team, and in Roush Fenway, we got to continue to strive to build faster race cars. We got to strive to make fewer mistakes on the racetrack and have faster pit stops. Now the thing that's going to change, I guess, for us is, crew chiefs, the way they want to call the race and how aggressive they want to be, and, at different points of the race. And for me, it's, whatever Brian Patty tells me he wants to do, I'm good with it, and I'm going to go drive as hard as I can. And whether it be try to win segments or, just get the best possible finish we can. But, I think scoring points in those segments is going to be pretty beneficial.
McFadden.
Daniel McFadden with NBC Sports. What will be your lasting memory of having Greg Biffle as your teammate, whether it was on track or off track?
Greg, he was one that I wish he could have been in some of our meetings that we had. I know some people listen to him on the radio and he can flip out, but he was always very engaged, of the feedback that he gave. He really cared about Roush Fenway and Jack and wanting to make it better. And, it was pretty frustrating for him, I know, over the last few years, going from winning races every year and contending for championships to struggling. And, I was hoping that he would be able to stick around for us to get it turned back in the right direction. But, him as a teammate since, I got in the Cup Series in 2013. He helped me when I was in the Xfinity Series, giving me pointers. And, so definitely going to miss him. But, I think he's put a lot of hard work in at Roush Fenway, and a lot of people appreciate it.
Chris.
Chris Knight, CatchFence.com. Ricky, you and Trevor both ran one Xfinity race last year, but both had really good results with top 5 finishes. Did that help you guys' confidence on Sundays, and is it something that we could see more of in 2017?
I'd love to do it. I don't see it happening right now. That was kind of a one-off thing that Sunny Delight wanted to do, so I don't really see it happening. I've requested it to happen, but I don't see it happening. Sponsors aren't easy to come by to do that. But no, I do think it helps confidence a little bit, getting back, in our Xfinity cars that I feel are still capable of running strong, but it gives you a little bit more confidence that if we can get our Cup cars where they need to be, we can go out and race with the same guys that are racing on Saturdays as well.
Tyler.
Tyler Burnett, Motor Racing Network. Did you have a good time in Tulsa, and do you have any midget plans this year?
Had a great time at Tulsa. We didn't win. I'm still looking for the first Chili Bowl win, but we competed strong and felt like we had a good showing. Our whole Clausen Marshall Racing team was very strong and put on a good show. I felt like for Brian and all his fans that were there that wanted to see us do well. That's something I always look forward to in the off season. I don't have any. Tim Clausen just sent me the USAC midget schedule. I'm looking at that to see what races I can make. So I don't have any as of yet. Right now, the first dirt thing I plan on doing is probably there's an ASCS race at Texas Motor Speedway the same weekend that we run. So looking at putting a car together to do that.
Barry Richmond. Final question.
Barry Richmond, Piedmont Broadcasting Corporation. Just sort of picking up on what you were just saying, coming to Martinsville this year under the lights, what are your thoughts about yet another night race, but something that's more in line of bullpen Saturday night racing?
Well, I hope the lights will help change my results at Martinsville. I haven't completed many laps at Martinsville, so maybe the lights will help that. I've struggled a lot at Martinsville. It's something that I know that if we want to get better as a team, I got to get better at Martinsville, and we got to get our cars better there. It's never been a track for us as Roush Fenway to run very strong at, but it's something that I like them putting lights on any racetrack. I think the atmosphere will be cool at Martinsville.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining us. We have one more driver.